And now we're very happy to welcome the Reverend Diane Jeep.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Always good to see everyone. Lots of love. You can just feel it in the energized air we are sharing. So today, the topic or the title that I'm using is Light and the Value of Darkness. Light is what we strive to acquire, lightness of being, lightness of spirit, lightheartedness, because light's a symbol of hope, salvation from darkness. And we ignite candles to show that we are looking for and searching for the eternal light to show us that way. And light is often associated with wisdom. The word itself means to give knowledge or understanding, especially spiritual insights, as in to become enlightened. People mostly think of light as something desirable. On the other hand, darkness is usually dismissed as something negative. Darkness is eschewed as something to be avoided. And when darkness is negatively considered, disposing the value of darkness, we are bereft of a valuable resource. Light doesn't shine without the value of darkness. Light and darkness are both our friends. There's a spokesman for the traditional circle of elders, Oren Lyons, and he says, "The natural law is a spiritual law. Its powers are both light and dark. Universe has polarity, the ebb and flow of seas, sunrise and sunset, up and down, and every plus has a minus and every positive has a negative. Earth's ecosystem depends on light from the sun, of course. Plants use sunlight to make food for themselves in their leaves. And Earth's unseen underground ecosystem sustains what we can see. Darkness is as much a part of life as light. In darkness, there can be all kinds of growth. Without times of darkness, our physical, emotional, and spiritual ecosystems don't flourish. We need darkness for the circadian rhythm of sleep. Humans gestate for months in the womb before opening to the crass light of day. And there are some newly discovered aquatic species at the bottom of the ocean that live their entire lives completely in darkness, the opposite of what we usually think of as a life-giving environment. Ralph Bloom, in his Book of Runes, wrote, "The seed of the new is contained in the shell of the old. Servicing from the darkness of the old shell is where we find a new beginning, a new start, a renewed perspective, a regenerated, soulful choice. The cycle of life is death, decay, fertilization, gestation, rebirth. Rebirth, or lightness of being, develops from darkness, or if you like, from emergency to emergence. Imagine a room that's been shut away with the shades drawn and the curtains shut. When the door is merely cracked open, we can see a sliver of light in the midst of the darkness. Spiritually speaking, this is where the light of hope enters. The light of hope is always stronger than discouragement, despair, and the dust of darkness." There's an author, Og Mandino, and he writes, I will love the light, for it shows me the way. Yet I will endure the darkness because it shows me the stars." To clearly see the stars, we need the darkest night surroundings. You know, there are these dark sky places around the world that are designated and dedicated to that experience. Geographically, we navigate by the light of the North Star, best seen in a dark night sky. And when I'm going through the dark night of the soul, my true north, my orienting point, I find my genuine self, my complete self. The dark night of the soul ignites our purpose and our meaning. Darkness holds our mysteries. There's a Reverend cadet who said, "We enter darkness to pray as we close our eyes to focus and avoid distractions. This then could be one purpose of spiritual darkness. It's a pulling away from the visions and the distractions in the light and focusing the mind and the heart on God. Here is where we begin to grow, in the dark." Darkness is a container. It's a container for us to discover our hidden selves. Darkness can't dispel light, but affirmative prayer is the flashlight that overpowers darkness. Hope overcomes despair. And really, what hope would be needed if there wasn't any darkness? Now, by now you might be asking yourself, okay, I get the value of darkness, but what do I do with it? How do I get past that? How do I make the darkness conscious? How do I reach my inner light, the unexacting calm of inner peace? Exploring the darkness of the shadow side yields bright promise when I seek and find my feckless foibles. The shadow side of me is the wounded, unconscious, underprocessed hurt that molded my earlier life, that molded my protective mechanisms, that became poor behavior. The shadow side keeps me from myself and others through isolation or fear of judgment, and of course, fear of rejection. The positive aspect of the shadow is that it gets my attention. And as I continue to do the deeper work, I have a greater sense of my truth and my oneness with spirit, so that shadow is not as powerful nor unconscious. It's been written, one does not need to become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. I know I am not only alone in this, I'm with all of us who are human. Drilling down into the shadow side is a painful process. After all, Viktor Frankl said, what is to give light must endure burning. So true. Author, mystic, and intuitive Caroline Myss says the shadow has power precisely because it remains in the dark. We tend to deny its presence because we consider it unacceptable. Only when we face and acknowledge the shadow's presence can we neutralize its potential negative impact on us. And here I paraphrase Myss. Shadow is part of the self and we don't know much about. It's neutral, but without shadow work, it will cause trouble. And she refers to Alan Watts when she says, goody-goodies are the biggest troublemakers. We banish the undesirable, but the shadow is part of us. Those traits can be creativity, unconventional ideas, even our sexuality, or more specifically, repressed sexuality. The dark side is hidden behind the mask of light. Then we blame the environment for our negative behavior. But acceptance of our shadow is our friend and solution. Awareness is the first step to overcome the shadow, to move from the unconscious to the conscious. Awareness and integration of the shadow is a lifelong process. Myss concludes, if I were to define one spiritual life, it's the sacred path of the shadow. Progressing through my shadow side moves me from emergency to emergence. And here in New Thought, we embrace our awareness of divine presence, that it is evolving, and we remain open to refining our beliefs. Outmoded beliefs are the shell of the old. Awareness of divine presence is the seed of the new. For example, inside my shell of anger is the seed of passion. Inside my impatience is my readiness. The refinement of my beliefs is the inside job of my inner world, the inner world that encompasses the shadow side of my nature. After all, God expresses through us as us. Emmett Fox wrote about darkness as the belief of limitation and separateness from truth of the oneness of God. And there have been so many times of internal darkness that I have felt and believed I was separate from God, actually rejected by God. Without universe's love, I have felt tremendous limitation because I was not higher powered nor God-centered. But when I am higher powered, then I can withstand the heartache of the shadow's archetypes. And here are some examples of my shadow archetypes. The shadow aspect of caregiver, the archetype is victim. The shadow of creator, the archetype is perfectionist. The shadow aspect of the warrior, the archetype is my displaced loyalty even when the facts prove the opposite. And these archetypes bring feelings of inadequacy, fear, and envy, and those aren't positive life purposes, they're joy killers. So in my practice of mining the shadow and archetypes, the question that surfaces is, who am I? Who am I swings wide the door of darkness to yield a lightness of self. It brings forth self-knowledge, otherwise hidden or unknown. Who am I is the older sibling of I am. Who am I is an inner reconnaissance that leads me through to I am. Who am I? I am one with God, my conscious awakening and transformed self. I am one with universe, in union, in league with the power of universe, limitless. Through acknowledgement and acceptance of the shadow, I have come to believe God has a purpose for me. I am useful in this world, and I don't have to understand it. I've learned to live with divine mystery. If I live only recognizing and presenting my light, then I would be living an inauthentic life. And when I unearth the seed of the new, excuse me, present, present in the shell of the old, then the shadow's protective I'm choking on my own words. When I unearth the seed of the new, present in the shell of the old, then the shadow's protective mechanisms are actually strengths in disguise or malformed character resources. These can be retrieved and reformed. As Carl Jung said, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. So how do I kindle that light? Here are questions that I ask myself. Where have I respected myself today? Where have I assigned forgivable behaviors that reduced my standing in the community or respect for myself? Where have any of my transactions been led by characteristics of darkness? What is unacknowledged in me that wreaks havoc in my relationships? And the spiritual tools I practice include living a life with affirmative prayer, acknowledging the power of spirit and my oneness with it, any form of meditation, self-reflection with arduous honesty, gratitude for the light and the dark, and release through ritual. For the spiritual tools of the religious scholar and mystic, we can all turn to the work of Andrew Harvey and the Seven Flames. Harvey says the Seven Flames practice is a rigorous discipline of joy, the core of God, which when practiced brings the divine human. The first flame, trust the mystic pioneers, the prophet. Not just trust, but you do the work, the meditation, the prayer work to polish the mirror of your heart. The second flame, celebrate the glory and the majesty, the power and the beauty of creation. Love nature madly. Recognize that, as Aurobindo says, nature is the body of God. Third flame, love animals, get a pet. Stunning, peaceful, radiant relationship. That floods this peace and joy that fills us. The fourth flame, the sacred relationship. In terrible times, we need to cultivate profound, deep relationships. If you have a sexual partner, use the tantras. Without a partner, no worries. Tantra of tenderness. See the miserable one. Concentrate your open heart on their heart. Send love and wordless tenderness. The fifth flame, play. Purest energy, the wildest energy comes from play. Find an area in which you play. The sixth flame, sacred inspiration, the great arts, painting and opera, and all of it. This can give you the secret mystics. And the seventh flame, the flame of joy that rises in you when you know your sacred mission that is unique to you, that you know what you need to do and you do it. Ground yourself in the joy of action, and your joy will inspire others. So we see the pathway through darkness can be playful and joyful, not taking ourselves too seriously. So let's get on with the work of the shadow in a yielding and jubilant, spirit-led way. This excavation and integration are never really finished. Just like fingernails, the shadow archetypes grow back and they need to be trimmed. It's not one and done. Spiritual evolution needs maintenance. Go into the world fuller and more aware of yourself through practices. Let love lead the way. Let love lead through darkness into light with the love of self, the love of others, the love of universe. Be thankful for what you have. Give to others in any way that you can. Give yourself the gift of joyful living in the solution. Offer yourself up to Spirit on December 21st, the shortest day of the year or the longest day of darkness, when it's considered the beginning of winter, the time of hibernation, decay, gestation, and preparation for birth. And in the darkness, we incubate the birth of a new human. Birth your divine human in, with, and through the value of darkness. And so it is.